Revolution, the colonization of North America. The Pilgrim Fathers. The history of America was born in 1620 when the Pilgrim Fathers arrived on the north coast of America on board of the Mayflower. During their voyage, they stipulated the Mayflower Compact. This document is still today the basis of American Constitution.
The first European colonies. The Pilgrim Fathers were not the first European colonists in North America. In fact, before them, English, French and Dutch traders went there because they wanted to export some goods. However, from 1620, the migration to North America assumed a different character. In fact, some religious groups, in particular the Puritans, went there because they wanted to build a new society where everyone could express their religion in full liberty.
The white colonists. Thousands of people from Scotland, Ireland, Germany, Sweden and Norway decided to emigrate to the North America, and from the very start the population was a melting pot of diverse ethnic and religious groups, and in order to maintain their own traditions they decided to establish their relationships on the principle of equality and tolerance.
The slaves and the Native Americans. At that time, in America, didn't live only the white colonists, but also the inhabitants that were called Indians or Redskins, and the black slaves that are brought forcefully to America.
The American Revolution from the colonies to the United States of America. The 13 English colonies were inhabited by 4 million people, including white colonists and Americans and African slaves. In the northern colonies, Puritan, narrow-minded farmers prevailed, and they lived on trade, fishing, and industry. Instead, the port cities were more dynamic.
In the middle colonies lived people of different nationalities and ethnics that based their economy on agriculture and trade. And finally, in the southern colonies, there were a lot of plantations that were owned by wealthy landowners and cultivated by fellow planters.
The 13 English colonies shared certain characteristics. In America, social status had no effect on economic and social mobility. Assemblies and elective institutions were present in all colonies, and some of them had adopted also a written constitution. Only white men in America could vote, provided their income was above a certain threshold. In fact, women, slaves, and indigenous people couldn't vote. And, however, the political life was more vibrant than in Europe. Dependence on England. Colonies were not completely autonomous because commerce was under British governors' control. The colonies were offered military protection in exchange for their exclusive economic relations with England.
However, as the colonies began developing, the idea of dependence became even more unacceptable.
The clef with the manual. The revolt of the King's American subjects exploded when the government decided to impose a tax on all printed materials with the 1765 Stamp Act. The colonists refused to comply, arguing that people who didn't enjoy political representation shouldn't be taxed, and this idea was summarized in the famous phrase, "no taxation without representation." The revolt truly began in 1773, when a group of colonists dumped 45 tons of tea into the sea as a protest against the English monopoly on the American commerce and colonial commerce. This event is known as the Boston Tea Party.
Phillips, I'm going to get this story.
Just the tea, men! Remember, we're not to damage anything else, we're just after the tea!
Why are you destroying the tea?
We're protesting unfair taxation. Parliament raised the tea tax over our objections. Maybe next time they'll listen.
No taxation without representation!
Do you know what that means?
Nope, I heard the others saying it.
We've stumbled into the story of a lifetime. I'm going below deck to see what's happening. Stay out of trouble.
Take that, Parliament!
The creation of the United States. In 1774, the colonial representatives had their first Congress. Fearful of a military clash with the British, Congress formed a united army called the Continental Army, with George Washington as its commander. On the 4th of July 1776, Congress signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, thus formally severing all ties with Great Britain. However, Great Britain actually acknowledged the independence of the 13 colonies in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris, after some decisive American victories.
The American Declaration of Independence is the basis of the modern political thinking. The ideas of the English philosopher John Locke inspired the Declaration of Independence. Equality, rights, liberty and consent are the most important words that we can find in this document. In this declaration states that people's rights are not granted by the government, but the government has to safeguard these rights. If the government fails, the people can decide to abolish it.
So this is an extract from the first part and the last part of the Declaration of Independence, and it's underlined the importance of the human rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over the states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
The American Revolution and the American Constitution. A federal republic. Once independent from Great Britain, the problem of keeping the ex-colonies together came to the fore. The young nation could only survive with the creation of a federal republic, wherein each single state could preserve some authorities, and a decision of general interest were taken by a parliament and the united government. So, on September 1787, the representative of the ex-colonies assembled in Philadelphia ratified the Constitution, the first Constitution of the United States of America, and George Washington became the first president.
A modern constitution that is still in force today. The American Constitution has remained in force to this day. The federal government has power over matters such as defense, international trade, and immigration. Each state enjoys a degree of autonomy with regard to such areas as civil and criminal laws. The President of the United States is elected every 4 years by delegates from each state, themselves voted by citizens.
The Constitution planned for a three-branch system of government: the executive branch, represented by the President; the legislative branch, called Congress, a bicameral parliament with a Senate and a House of Representatives elected by citizens; and a judicial one, made up of the Supreme Court and the federal courts.
Separation of powers and checks and balances. The American Constitution prevented the concentration of power in the hands of a single individual. So first, it was established a three-branch system of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial powers. This system was proposed for the first time by the philosopher Montesquieu. And second, it was established a system of checks and balances. For instance, the President can veto a law passed by Congress, while the Supreme Court decides if the decisions made by the President are in line with the Constitution.
Montesquieu. He saw two types of government, sovereign and administrative, with executive, legislative, and judicial. Administrative governments need to be separated and dependent from each other. Likewise, there were three types of government supported by a social principle. The first one is monarchy, a free government headed by an hereditary figure with the principle of honor. Then we have republic, a free government headed by a popular figure with the principle of virtue. And then despotism, an enslaved government headed by an dictator, and it is based on fear.
The Declaration of Independence that was ratified in 1787 did not specify the individual rights of the citizens. To remedy this lacuna, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution were ratified in 1791 and were called the Bill of Rights. Today, there are 27 amendments to the Constitution which declared the principle of equality. There are two most important steps. In 1865, slavery was abolished, and in 1870, the right to vote was granted to all citizens.
The influence of Rousseau. We, the people of the United States. The American Constitution begins with words that are completely new and revolutionary for their epoch. The government is viewed as a social contract that exposes the ideas of the French philosopher Rousseau. Rousseau argues that the sovereignty should be in the hands of the people, and he also makes a distinction between sovereignty and government. He approves the kind of republican government.
The introduction of the American flag was revolutionary. Until then, flags had not represented peoples or nations, but monarchs and their coats of arms. The new American nation was represented by 13 stars, a constellation of different but United States.
Plan for a three-branch system of government. Delle.
Revolution exploded when the government decided to impose a tax.
Are not granted by the government, but that the government
Ma leggi!